The Last of Us Part 2, a name that is able to bring about a divided amount of praise and critique. A game that simply cannot be compared to its predecessor for the worst and best of reasons. A sequel that has solidified itself as a debated mess where people cannot decide which end of the scale is where they should lie. Where even the middle grounds seem to invite challenge from every end of the fanbase. And to be honest, I get it. When you come to care for and adore something as precious as The Last of Us or anything else that is meaningful to you, you want to be as supportive but also as protective of it as possible. That's human nature. This is why I can sympathize with people on either end of the argument. But I want to take it one step further. I want to discuss something that just cannot be overlooked or forgiven. Because it's a betrayal to the very game that we love. The Last of Us Part 2 is best described as a guilty pleasure. On one hand, some new additions to the cast are intriguing and fascinating, while others are absolutely despicable. The gameplay is outstanding, though still feels underutilized in some areas. Some concepts expand this world onto new and interesting grounds, while others shake it to its core. The graphics are beyond comparison, but what good are they if the greatest story to complement it is nothing short of disappointing? Now, disclaimer. This video isn't meant to cast unbridled hate onto the game, nor is it a deeper dive into what could have been. We already have plenty from both sides, no. What I plan to discuss today is something mentioned in passing by quite a few but never actually discussed in length as to what I'm aware of. By now, we know what Neil Druckmann was hoping to achieve. Regardless of the execution and other unavoidable factors, one of the key aspects of The Last of Us Part 2 was to have us see Ellie and Joel in a more negative light. Even though the first game already did that, but whatever. While also allowing us to see Abby and her crew from a favorable stance. It was to get us, the players, to see them, the characters, as who they are. Flawed people. All of them. We weren't supposed to sympathize for one side over the other, but rather understand where they all came from and why the decisions that they made were understandable for them. After all, Joel did kill Abby's father, right? Why shouldn't she have a revenge? The main reason that comes to mind is that people just don't care because a compelling enough reason wasn't given in order for them to do so. Fellow YouTuber A Closer Look covers these points in detail in his video, which I highly recommend you all watch if you haven't already. Anyway, my goal is to expand on one of the key points made by them. So, what really is the problem with these unlikable characters, you may ask? The first game was already built on the trope of rooting for those with plentiful amounts of misdeeds under their belt. How does this game differ? The simple answer is, there just isn't anything redeeming about Abby and her crew. There really isn't a deeper side to it. Aside from that one excuse to kill Joel off at the very beginning, the main cast just continues to be unlikable for the sake of being unlikable. The original Last of Us was built around the foundation and growth of Ellie and Joel's relationship. They are, without doubt, the most important aspect of that game. They have their quarrels and you find yourself siding with either one or the other at various times. That's what makes them feel real. They're a perfect example of how to make two opposing characters equally likable. The issue arises once you realize that the second game attempts to do the same, though it doesn't account for the strong liking we already have for the main two. This isn't a standalone game, it's a sequel. Even Ellie by the end of the game, a shell of her former self and a revenge-driven savage, would still have more people opt for her instead, simply due to how we've been part of her story for so long. Just look at all the gamers that played through this section.
Kill her ass! Ow!
I have waited a long time. You're gonna cut her down.
Nope. 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 Nope.
What if you could just take out a gun and shoot her right now if you wanted to?
What the fuck is she doing? Did she not plan what she was gonna do?
To take out a gun and put a bullet in her head, bro.
She's gotta have a golf club somewhere. The fuck are you doing, Ellie? Shoot her in the knees or something.
Abby is near death, with a child by her side, yet still people root for Ellie up until the very end. This isn't the most astonishing mistake though. You think the writers themselves would know why the first game was as much of a hit as it was. To keep it brief, we as an audience were willing to overlook Joel's sinful actions such as the slaughter of the fireflies because he had reasoning for it. There was a heart and soul behind these vile acts. Joel thought he was doing what was right out of love and care. He'd already lost one daughter and he wasn't going to lose another. Now, compare that sentiment to the ones we find within Abby and her crew. If we are to perceive them the same way as Joel and Ellie, we can't even call them friends. Abby turns tail and massacres her brethren, the people she's come to call home and those she's fought alongside. Sure, you could argue it was to save Yara and Lev, but there isn't a single ounce of remorse in her for her actions. Conflicted people don't act like that. Villainous people do. And this was the best of it. Manny spits on Joel's body out of pure malicious intent even after his death. The supposed secondary protagonist lays with the married man while Owen, the person in question, cheats on his pregnant and very loving wife. And to further analyze on a very specific level, just look at how they treat each other. Sure, they might care, I guess, but the amount of tension between these people may be considered real, but it's supposed to come later, after we get to know them. This doesn't help their case. Are these the people we are meant to care for? Listen, all good protagonists should make mistakes and face obstacles that they're destined to overcome. But the barrier inhibiting Naughty Dog to write Abby's people in a similar way is how they aren't heroes, at least not to us. Whether death as gut-wrenching and painful as Joel's, it's no longer a matter of setting up subplot after subplot for his killers. We can't progress forward with this story, not until we have a reason to. Not until we want to. If the intention was to have us be divided between these two conflicting stories in the game, then we simply needed to understand more of what Abby was actually going through before the revenge plot thickened. There was an attempt, sure, but one flashback doesn't grant enough justice for a man's death we already had known was a ruthless murderer. We knew he was a bad person. We have known forever. Ironically, it only angers fans even more since Abby, when confronted with the pleading and groveling Ellie, chooses to subject her to the same traumatic events that so drastically impacted her own life. There was no remorse, not even a moment's worth of hesitation in her movements. I'll be repeating my point again because it's the only proper way to convey the factual response that'd be given to such an interaction. It just doesn't make sense. The so-called other side of the story is full of cheating, disrespectful, remorseless, heartless characters. Oh, this one had a dad? This one lost hers? Well, I guess that solves everything then, huh? This video got frustrating as I wrote it. This is because, in hopes of trying to make sense why Naughty Dog did what they did, it just becomes more irritating how they actually went about it. The concept itself could have worked. The direction though, it's meaningless. And it pains me to see a franchise be driven into the ground. Joel may have deserved death, but he didn't deserve this. Ellie has every right to be vengeful, but she can't be a different character entirely. I don't have much more to add other than hopefully we can all accept what we have been given one day. Thank you, and goodbye.